Hello team, welcome back to another week of remote learning. I just want to say at this point, well done for the effort that you're putting in at home. It makes me really proud to see all of you trying your absolute best. And it's particularly important that you are engaging with the content and putting 110% in, because on the 4th of February, you are going to be completing a language paper 1 assessment in full for your assessment this term. So please continue to engage, continue to challenge yourself, continue to ask questions, continue to push yourselves, because you are all very, very capable individuals, but you have to be accessing the content in order to understand this language paper. This week, we're going to look at question 5, so that way we would have walked through the entirety of the language paper 1. Next week, I can focus on kind of mopping up any problems or improvements that I think we can make for any of the questions. So let's get straight into it. Can you please write the title, date, and the learning objective? Pause the video and do that now, please. Okay. Now I would like you to have a go at the do now. And before I reveal the do now to you, I just want to make it really clear that when I look at your work, some of you have written exactly word for word the answers that I have written. And that either means, number one, you're not trying and you're just skipping through it and just copying the answers down, or number two, we are linked, our brains are linked and we write the same things. I highly doubt it's the second one. Please don't lie to yourselves. The do now questions are for you to keep retrieving your knowledge and keep practicing your skills. It's vitally important that you do it properly. So please ensure that you're not just skipping forward to look at the answers. Okay, it's doing no one any benefit whatsoever. But with that being said, can you please complete this task by copying the sentences and correcting the spelling, punctuation, and grammar errors, please? Pause and do that now. Okay, now you're back, we can start making our corrections. So, using a purple pen to make any of the improvements that you need to. So we have a couple of examples of parentheses in number 1, number 3, and number 5, where we see additional information sectioned off with brackets and dashes. Remember, if it's parentheses at the end, you don't need a dash at the end of the sentence before the full stop, but you do need a bracket. Then we also have a spelling error in studied, and also we have the use of the wrong verb. Here, they was walking instead of they were walking. These are all things that you get marks for in question 5, so it's important to get the practice in. Pause if you need to make any corrections before moving on. Okay, so let's look at question 5 as an overview. So question 5 focuses on narrative or descriptive writing, and that is AO5 and AO6. So your narrative is your stories, and your descriptive is pretty self-explanatory, a description of something. And question 5 is worth half the marks of the paper. The paper is worth 80. This question is worth 40 marks. So it's a big one that we need to get right. The marks are split into two. You get 24 marks for the content of the piece, your ideas, the way you structure those ideas, how imaginative and relevant those ideas are. And then 16 marks for accuracy. Now that's huge. For literature paper 1, you get 4 marks for your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. And here you get 16. And that's for the variety of punctuation you use, how you use it, your spelling of sophisticated words, your grammar. It has to be very consistent. It has to be near perfect. Okay, it's a good 60 marks to be able to get as well. So question 5 will always look something like this. It will say you're going to enter a creative writing competition, something along those lines. And it will give you an option. So either you write a description suggested by the picture, and there'll be a picture of something there. They have thrown some quite strange ones at us before, but we are going to practice writing descriptions based on pictures. or they'll tell you to write the opening to a story about, and then give you a focus or a title. Okay, whatever one you choose to do, you will follow the structure that I'm going to teach you. Whether it's descriptive or narrative, you will follow the structure. Okay, and they are marked the same. There's no different mark schemes for narrative and description. They are both worth 40 and 24 for content and 16 for accuracy. If you would like to write any of this down, you can do, but it's not necessary. So pause if you would like to, but if not, let's move on. Okay, now this is what I want you to get down. So can you write approaching question 5, please, as your subheading? Okay. So it's important to be aware of what marks are awarded for, and therefore what you need to be working on and what you need to be including in your pieces. So marks are awarded for how you communicate your ideas and how imaginative your ideas are. Ultimately, just about how you write and how you present these things that you're writing about. You also get awarded for use of language techniques. So we're good at identifying and analysing, but how good are we at using them? So using similes and metaphors and personification and hyperbole. Use of a clear structure. This is what I'm going to teach you. And also our spelling, punctuation and grammar. And it's not just about accurate use. It's really important that I emphasise it's about using these things for impact, making sure they have a purpose. It's really important that you spend a significant amount of time planning your response and proofreading your response. I tell you all the time that these processes of planning, writing, and proofreading are often where you're able to spot mistakes and improve mistakes. Can you please pause the video and get this information down now, please? Okay. So let's start looking at the structure. I'm going to teach you structure, I'm going to teach you different language techniques, I'm going to teach you different vocab. Last week we looked a little bit at sensory vocabulary, and that's a really good start, but I think it's important at this stage, ahead of your assessment on the 4th of February, to be completely aware of the structure, and then we can fill that structure with amazing language and amazing vocab as we go through. So our first paragraph of our descriptive writing is the zoom out paragraph, and this is the first of 4 paragraphs at this stage that I'm going to teach you. Now, the zoom out paragraph requires you to describe the whole scene. For example, if this is the image that you are given, this is the image that we're going to look at with some model answers today. You want to describe the atmosphere and the mood. Is it a positive atmosphere? Is it a negative atmosphere? How do the characters feel? How does the scene look? How would you feel in this scene? Also, the weather, that can have an impact on the atmosphere and the mood. Talking about the sky, talking about the wind, talking about the rain, etc., etc. And then you also want to talk about some main items in the scene. So what do you actually see in the scene? So for example, in this one you have a car, there is a snowman, I think there's a rabbit, there's some trees, there's a house. Those are some main items in the scene. The zoom out paragraph is going to set you up for your whole response. It's going to give the marker an insight into what you're going to write about and how you are interpreting the picture or the statement given about a story. So let's have a look at what a zoom out paragraph would look like. I've written this paragraph here. I'm going to read it and then I'm going to reveal the checklist that I've used to create this paragraph. You are going to be using the same checklists throughout the next 2 years to create paragraphs at this level. So let's have a read of my zoom out paragraph based on that kind of Christmas scene that we just saw. That morning, joy consumed the house at the end of the peaceful street. Minute drops of pearl white snow fell from the bright sky as they swayed from side to side in the gentle breeze. It's important to notice at this point that minute is spelt like minute, but they are not the same. Minute drops means very, very small. This gentle breeze created a harmony as it caused the crispy leaves in the trees at the back of the house to rustle. Simultaneously, the plump clouds moved through the indigo sky like a graceful ballerina dancing to the music created by the auburn leaves below. The powerful roof, made from glossy tiles, protected the house and those who lived inside. Shifts of light came from the festive decor that covered the exterior of the house. It illuminated the ivy-covered bay window, which exposed a comfortable scene in the living room. Looking through the window, a plump child could be seen enthusiastically skipping towards a vast Christmas tree. That is a zoom out paragraph. That is a great start to a zoom out paragraph. This is the checklist that I have used to create it. So let's just talk about the checklist and go through it, and then I'm going to ask you to do some colour coding and highlighting. But it's really important that before we do that, we understand what all of these things mean. So, fronted adverbials are phrases at the beginning of sentences that talk about how something is done, the manner in which something is done, the time in which something is done, the place in which something is done. We've looked at fronted adverbials with non-fiction when we talked about words such as shockingly or crucially. Describing the mood of the scene using personification, an interesting verb. Remember, verbs are doing words. And personification is giving a non-human object human qualities. We have describing the weather 3 times. One of those times you have to use a simile, which is using the word like or as to make a comparison. Then you describe 3 main items in the scene. How you do this is up to you. You're going to use colour vocabulary, and we're going to talk about this in a lot more detail in a few lessons' time, but I just wanted to make sure that my models were high level enough and they showed you everything that you're going to have to include. So don't worry too much at this point if you're confused what that means. And then at the end, you're going to finish off by describing a character's movements towards one of the main items. Now, this is important because it gives the piece cohesion. It blends the paragraphs together and it threads them together. So, on Show My Homework, there is a document that says descriptive writing, model, and match. That is where the 4 paragraphs for this week are going to be. So what I would like you to do is pause the video and open that document, and I would like you to go through and highlight where I have done each of these items in the checklist in my model paragraph. Please do not go through and complete the highlighting for every single paragraph because I need to be able to explain those to you. For today, just highlight and match up the zoom out paragraph on the document. Can you please pause the video and do that now, please? Okay, you should be back with a highlighted zoom out checklist. So let's have a look at what it should look like. Okay, don't make any corrections right now. I just want to explain a few things to you before you do that. So my fronted adverbials are these phrases here. It's important to notice that not all of them are just words that end in ly. They can be phrases. We have a description of the mood using personification. The personification here, is consumed. Okay, Joy actually hasn't physically consumed the house, but it's the idea that joy is really overwhelming and everyone in the house feels joy. We have describing the weather times 3 and once using a simile, and the simile here is talking about the clouds that move through the indigo sky like a graceful ballerina dancing to the music created by the auburn leaves below. I just want to make that clear. I do believe most of you probably would have figured that out. We've got the 3 main items in the scene. We have the powerful roof, we have the kind of the shifts of light from the decor, and then we have the bay window. For the character's movement, we have our character who's going to be a plump child, and they are moving towards the vast Christmas tree. And this indicates that the plump child and the Christmas tree are going to form a focus in our later paragraphs. We also have the colour vocabulary here. We have pearl white, indigo sky, and auburn leaves. We're upgrading our language here instead of just saying white snow or dark sky or brown leaves. It's also important to recognise that there is some sensory vocabulary that has been used here. Words such as crispy, words such as rustle for the sounds, plump, glossy, illuminates, all of these things are sensory vocabulary, which you are more than welcome to pick out if you would like. Pause the video now. Make sure that your model on your Word document looks exactly like this, please. Okay, so now what I would like you to do is we're going to plan each paragraph as we talk about the models for the paragraphs that I have written. Now, your plan for your question 5 is going to be based on this picture, which is from an old language paper 1. So this image here, you have this train that seems to be kind of getting about to get destroyed by a wave. And we have these houses here. I personally think this is quite a challenging image. There's not many things in the scene and there's also no characters, but that doesn't mean that you can't use your imagination to describe characters in the train or to use your imagination to describe these houses along here. So what you're going to do now for me is you're going to use this checklist here and this mind map to plan a zoom out paragraph. Okay, I don't know why it says storm there. That's not what we're doing, so you can just ignore that. What I would like you to do is pause the video and copy out this mind map in a space on your paper or in your book, and then come back to the video because I just want to talk to you about how to approach this plan. Okay, so you should have this mind map copied out. There's no need to copy down the checklist because it's in front of you. So what I would do when I am approaching a plan for a paragraph is go through the checklist step by step and plan what I'm going to do. Just bullet points, just ideas. So with fronted adverbials, it's quite hard to plan those fronted adverbials until you've decided what mood you're going to have, what the weather's going to be like. So I personally would leave that step till last. This is kind of the first sentence of our paragraph. So I need to describe the mood of the scene using personification and an interesting verb. So in the image, I saw the big wave coming over the train. So I can imagine that the mood would be kind of tense. Slash kind of like full of fear. And I can maybe say kind of like tension. I can maybe say that it kind of like blankets or even creeps onto the train, blankets the train. And that creeps would be an interesting verb there. That way I've done the personification, I've described the mood, and that step in my checklist is done. And then I would maybe go down to the weather, and I would maybe start off with, remember it's ×3, but I might start off with it being kind of like icy cold. And then I might pick 2 others, making sure one of them is a simile. And then I'd cross that one off, and then I'd work my way down again. You're more than welcome to use this idea that I've put on the screen for you, or you can use your own. It's just really important that you address each step of the checklist in your plan. So when it comes to writing, it's just about putting it on the paper, and also that means that you can focus more on your spelling, punctuation, and grammar when you are actually writing. So what I recommend that you do now is stop the video here, complete the plan. Obviously you can flick back to the image on the video and between the checklists to make sure that you're constantly focused on the image, but also to ensure that you are addressing everything in the checklist. Once you have done that, please make sure you send me a picture via email. Don't forget, because otherwise I can't look at your work and I can't see that you're doing the work. So please don't forget to do that for me. And I will look forward to seeing your plans, and I will see you in tomorrow's lesson for the second paragraph of the question 5 response.